What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through the top 1000 template, or the highest owned players within the top 1000 managers of the overall ranks at this current stage of the season. I actually really enjoy this series, one of my favorite videos to create every single game week, because I actually do use this from my own personal perspective. Effective ownership within higher ranks has become a massive part of how we do play FPL at the current time, and therefore I actually think this video is going to be super interesting to use on two kind of points of view. I've always kind of stated this at the start of these top 1000 templates. The first reason is to maybe give yourself a little bit of a safety net if there's a high owned player that you don't currently own, maybe a Jota, you think his ownership in terms of the overall ownership is quite low, but when you look at the top 1000, top 10k, he's actually owned by the majority of managers. So that first reason is going to be kind of a safety net if you want to bring that player in if he's a highly owned player. But the second is going to be the polar opposite of that. It's going to be to kind of pick out these differentials that we could potentially have over these higher ranked managers, because if we don't have different players to them, we're never going to catch up to them. So it's a nice little kind of variation there of safety plus differential. And in terms of FPL, it's always going to be a kind of decision whether to go differential, whether to stay safe. And that's why this top 1000 template gives us a little bit of thinking and kind of plants that seed into our minds. So if you guys want to see the top 1000 template for game week 15, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. But firstly, a quick word from our sponsor. This video has been sponsored by fantasyfootballfix.com. Use the website or their newly updated application. Make use of their price predictor tool to check your own players' prices as well as who's dropping and rising in price. Improve your rank by making use of their advanced tools as well as the algorithm, which helps back up your own FPL decisions. Win your mini leagues by keeping track of your main mini league rivals. Upload your FPL squad for free at fantasyfootballfix.com. So just going over a quick talking point of the game still happening tonight. So yes, game week 14 has not actually concluded yet. We still have United versus Arsenal and then Spurs versus Brentford coming up tonight. So make sure that you guys watch out for those games. But the reason I actually wanted to create the top 1000 template today was because I want to save the talking points and the team selection for tomorrow. I think it's a little bit useless to kind of create that video today when there could be massive talking points coming up tonight relating to Son, Ronaldo, a Kane, maybe even a Sancho, those sort of players. So I wanted to hold off that video till tomorrow, and then hopefully I do get time tomorrow to actually create it. But this video is going to be perfectly fine to do because the top 1000 templates based on ownerships that happened once the deadline commenced for game week 14. So the top 1000 template doesn't kind of change throughout the game week depending on which players are actually performing well, and that's why it's perfectly fine to do this video at this stage even though the game week hasn't concluded. But now going on to the actual top 1000 template, I just want to say right off the bat, there's definitely a couple of options right now. You guys can pretty much pick them out. High owned players at the current moment that are definitely super template. And right on cue saying that, we have Mo Salah, who's the first player to be actually owned by 100% of the top 1000 managers. I mean, you guys can understand it perfectly fine. Just such a quality player this season over these past FPL seasons, got us so many FPL points, and that's why he's definitely going to be owned by 100% of everyone. If you guys have actually watched the top 1000 template a couple of game weeks ago, you would have noticed that we've had a string of game weeks where there's 99.9%. So that one manager has unfortunately fallen out of the top 1000. A little bit overdue, I think. I mean, I don't really know how he's keeping up without Mo Salah. I mean, that's a feat on its own. So congratulations if you are that manager and you are watching this video. But in terms of the other picks, we have some massively high owned defenders as well. So I'm going to start off with the bench there. The bench is sometimes a little bit weird on these top 1000 templates because it does favor ownership, but still tries to have price constraints. So first off, we have Sanchez, but then we also have Ramsdale. So this is just showing you that these two options are quite highly owned, and if they don't own Ramsdale, they pretty much do own Sanchez. Mbeumo is another bench option with quite a high ownership, 38%. Wasn't enough to actually get onto the starting 11. Brownhill, 43.1%, understandable from a budget enabler point of view. And also Livramento, after a great start to the season, has dropped off slightly and even had a price drop in, I think, before game week 14. But his ownership is just under 70%. But now going on to the starting 11, and the first player at the keeper position is going to be Ramsdale. As a non-Ramsdale owner, this really does worry me, and tonight against United, hopefully he doesn't rack up too many points because he is owned by 73.6% of the top 1000 template. Now the goalkeeper might seem like a position that doesn't really score that many points, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, Ramsdale has actually been putting in a couple of shifts over these last few game weeks. Now, I would definitely not suggest to you guys to go wreck your team just to get Ramsdale in, but it is worth noting if you guys are on a wild card and you want to play it safe, you could opt for the Arsenal goalkeeper. But going on to the defenders, and as I mentioned, we basically have a template defense of Cancelo, Trent, and Reece James. Cancelo coming in with a massive 96.5% ownership, a little bit expected considering the fact that he's definitely one of the main choices for Pep Guardiola in that starting 11. Started every game for Man City, and a player that's going to start every fixture for Man City is guaranteed to get points, and that's why his ownership has been so high. We then move on to Trent Alexander-Arnold with a massive 99.7% of ownership. I mean, he's going to rival kind of Mo Salah in terms of those ownership stats. And can he get up to 100%? Maybe in the upcoming game weeks. Liverpool, unfortunately, didn't keep a clean sheet against Everton, so maybe that'll hinder him slightly. But I do think it's a reflection of how well Trent's actually done in these past couple game weeks. We then move on to our double Chelsea defense, starting off with Reece James, unfortunately not even in the squad against Watford, but his ownership still stays really high at 92.6%. This has also factored that Ben Shaw has been out injured, so I think a lot of managers have moved Ben Shaw out for Reece James, or they've gone for Marcos Alonso. 53.8% of ownership Alonso has had, quite a nice little reflection of how instrumental FPL Twitter, FPL Reddit, those sort of places are, because that's been a massive drive to getting Alonso in, and I think because of the Ben Shaw injury, that's only made Alonso an even better option. Unfortunately, against Watford this week, didn't have the best performance, actually picked up a yellow card, also conceding, but hopefully he can get back to that FPL form he's had in prior seasons, even the start of this season, and give us some FPL points. So does this mean we're having a kind of a shift to a back four system? I don't really know. Definitely a back three, a template back three. But Alonso, if he does keep up some good performances in his upcoming game weeks, we could see a shift to a back four. The midfield department's pretty much summed up by Liverpool at the current moment. We have Mo Salah with 100% ownership, as I said there. Definitely the most essential player to own. And if you guys don't own him, I don't really know what you've been doing this FPL season. Maybe having a good rank is going to be really hard without him. That's what I'm predicting. And I definitely think you guys have to get him, but most of you watching this video probably do. Jota, though, comes in at 93.1% of ownership. This was a player that a couple of game weeks ago no one kind of owned. So this shows you in FPL how kind of reactive things are and how volatile they are. And you kind of have to adapt to that. And you've seen the top 1,000 managers. They've been rewarded for getting him in quite early. And I think that ownership will only get closer to that 100% mark with the current form that the Portuguese international has been showing. Rafinha, our last starting 11 midfielder to go for, quite a good game week, this game week 14, scoring a goal, getting, I think, one bonus point, maybe no bonus points. I think that was kind of the debate of this week, him not getting any, but still 8 points, I think, for game week 14, relatively respectable at that price point, and he's owned by 54.6% of the top 1,000 managers. So still quite a high pick there. I know this might be quite interesting considering the fact that most people actually took Rafinha out, but those managers that stayed kind of patient with him have been rewarded, and that's going to be the top 1,000 managers. Now finally going onto our front line, and the most notable addition or kind of omission of this team is going to be that there's no really premium strikers. So no Jamie Vardy, no Harry Kane unfortunately, but this might be due to kind of budget constraints. But the three forwards in the top 1,000 template, at least at the current moment, is going to be Raul Jimenez at 63.4%, a player that unfortunately hasn't had great form over these past couple game weeks. Ivan Toney, who plays tonight against Spurs, a defense that hasn't been that strong, so maybe he can kind of reward his owners, which is going to be 57.9% of the top 1,000 template. And then finally, Antonio, who's the lowest owned player out of these three, and that's going to be a 51% ownership. So luckily with Antonio, the fixtures do turn quite quickly. I think in 2 game weeks time, we finally get some good fixtures. He is definitely not playing at the form he had at the start of the season, and that might be something that we have to kind of reflect on, but I am willing to give him some patience, and it seems like half the top 1,000 template have given him patience, and they're hoping that he can return, maybe in game week 15, but probably from game week 17 onwards. So as I mentioned at the start of this kind of top 1,000 template, there definitely are some options that are looking quite highly owned, and I would recommend maybe looking at these options if you guys don't own them, but you probably do. There are some differentials though that are coming up that you guys can look at, and in that forward department, if you guys do own someone like a Harry Kane, I don't really know where the ownership is looking for him in the top 1,000 template. But quickly kind of talking on transfers this week are super hard to predict. I guess if maybe there was a notable addition, maybe Reece James is going to be out for a long amount of time, we might see him departing, but I can't really assess this team and give you guys a template transfer to do. So that'll be kind of my assumption that the top 1,000 will be banking a transfer this week, but there always could be some variation here. Maybe a Raul Jimenez out for a Callum Wilson, maybe a Raul Jimenez to someone like a Harry Kane. When I did recreate this team in my transfer plan, I did have about 3 million to spend. spare. So that 3 million could be used to upgrade any department. And with players like a Dennis and a Josh King looking quite strong, maybe not in game week 15 against Man City, but in the upcoming game weeks, they do have a fixture swing. So we'll be looking maybe at bringing one of those players in. But as I did state earlier on, I think the safest assumption is just to make that the top 1,000 will bank a transfer, and then we'll reflect on them at least in 2 game weeks time when we do have some more time to assess the situation. But that's basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did, and subscribe if you're new and not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for more content tomorrow. Hopefully the ultimate guide plus team selection mashed up into one video like we did do for game week 14, as there's not a lot of time between game week 14 and game week 15, so I'm pretty sure you guys can understand. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.